I gave the preview, really talking about these three leaders in their communities, really turning on its head what the conventional idea of what a chamber is and how it operates. And I think you're going to hear from them that they did it certainly to survive, but I think you'll hear it to really thrive. And I'm going to start, this is the one time we're going to kind of go down the line, but it's important for them to set the stage of what their community is, what their community is like, what their business community is and what it was like, and what was the innovation that they drove or are driving in their community. And Becky, if I could start with you.
Sure, absolutely. As he mentioned, my name is Becky Bartoszek. I'm the president and CEO of the Fox Cities Chamber. Now, our footprint is the 2.5 counties that surround Appleton. So all of Outagamie County, all of Calumet County, and northern Winnebago, so Neenah-Menasha area. Not only are we the Chamber of Commerce, we are the regional EDO, and this is our 150th anniversary this year, so we're not a new organization. But 2 years ago, we brought our community together and tried to figure out a strategic plan where we could really move the needle for our community, and we knew it needed to be tied to talent attraction. So we launched a program which was called Connect Free, which is the first of its kind in the country, which is a complete free support system for small businesses. Our goal, after a ton of data modeling, was to double the size of our organization within 5 years. And in 2 years, we have doubled the size of our chamber. In Dallas in July, we were named the National Chamber of Commerce of the Year out of the 7,600 chambers across the US. And last week, thank you. And last week in Madison, we received the Wisconsin Innovation of the Year award as well.
Woo! Jacqui?
I am Jacqui Sharpe. I'm the executive director of the Three Lakes Area Visitors Bureau. I am a downtown business owner that 6 years ago was recruited to the board of what was the chamber at the time, and now I find myself executive director of that same organization. So we have historically been both, as in many small towns in tourist areas, we were the chamber and the DMO, the Destination Marketing Organization for our community. So we were funded by both membership dollars and room tax. And as we've looked at both our organization and our community over the past few years, since COVID had us starting a lot of these conversations new, we looked at the best way to support our partners and the best way to support our community, and that has been for us to lean into that tourism side of our organization. So just last year, a year ago this week, we dropped the chamber designation and became fully the Three Lakes Visitors Bureau. So we are funded almost entirely now by room tax, which allows us to present Three Lakes and all of our partners as a whole. We were running into problems where certain businesses who were definitely tourist attractions didn't want to be members, so they were left out of our marketing materials, our tourism product as a whole, and we have found that the best way to support each of our businesses and each of our, these are small businesses in our community, is to bring more overnight visitors. And to do that, we want to promote all of our partners. So now we are funded by room tax. That allows us to give a free partnership to anyone in the community that is interested, and we are now able to spend our time both internally. We're a very small organization, so it allows us to spend our time working on destination development with those room tax dollars as well, to continue to bring new overnight visitors to our community.
I just want to think about that for a second. You could have spent years like worried about the free rider problem, but instead you just dropped it. You said, well, what's a different way to fund what we're doing? And you left that problem aside. That's just awesome. Ray?
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Hill, and I serve as the executive director of the historic King Drive Business Improvement District number 8. And we are one of 33 bids in the city of Milwaukee. We are administered through the city, so we get our revenue from special real estate tax assessments. We are about 4.5 miles of commercial corridor, so it's a pretty big bid. We also are a designated Main Street, so we work very closely with WEDC's Main Street division that allows us to offer a lot of support for many of our small businesses in the district. We are 30 years old. We are a very small staff, so we're about a staff of 3.5. That half is a intern, so a part-time personnel. But we really focus on the experiences and activation, both with small businesses as well as commercial real estate through infrastructure. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks a lot, Ray. Chris.
Good afternoon, Chris Clemens, former executive director of the Viroqua Chamber. I resigned from that position on September 1st of this year to go to work full-time. I'm also a small business owner. My wife and I own a store in Viroqua, a shameless plug, Noble Ryan Cheese Company. Come check it out on your way home. I also own and at the moment, operate a soap manufacturing company that is dedicated to supporting women in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. The Viroqua Chamber it's a chamber of commerce. It's a Main Street organization and also serves as the city of Viroqua's chief tourism engine, contractor with the city of Viroqua for the expenditure of room tax dollars. Viroqua is an especially dynamic and special community. We are located in Vernon County, historically one of the poorest counties in the state of Wisconsin. When I started with the Viroqua Chamber in 2021, by per capita income, Viroqua was 10th from the bottom poorest county in the state. I'm proud to say that we've made significant progress in that. Out of 77 counties, Viroqua now is 15th based on the most recent data that I was able to access. So serving that community was a great honor for me. And so I look forward to chatting more about the ways that we did that. Thanks.
That's great, thanks. I had a chance to talk with each and every one of our esteemed panelists before this conversation. One of the observations that I had talking to Ray was Ray commented that what they've been working on is kind of undoing this challenge that their bid had become everything to everyone. And that led you down a path investing in a strategic plan. You've gone through that, now you're executing against that. Will you describe a little bit about that problem and then where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I didn't share is that we run across 5 neighborhoods, very strong, prominent neighborhoods in the city of Milwaukee. We are also adjacent to a very vibrant downtown. And so we turned 30 in 2022 and had a little bit of an identity crisis, right? We became all the things to all people, slightly a little bit of a community organization, a little bit of a business improvement district. We did some events. We did all the things. And not to say that we shouldn't have, but we were going back to what really would help our small businesses, right? We had to get back to what's our membership base? How do we help serve the people that are our members? And so we went through a strategic framework that took about 18 months that really focused on talking to the business owners, the property owners. What do you need? What do you want to see? We had a little thing called a COVID-19 pandemic that kind of altered retail and how we engaged with Main Streets, right? How people shopped, how they lived, how they worked. And so we needed to pivot. And we wanted to encourage our businesses to do the same. So we needed to provide the tools and resources to do that. And so in order to do that, we had to go back to the drawing board and work through this process. And it was pretty painful, right? You start shedding the things that you didn't need, that weren't serving to the members. They look great. We got a lot of great press from it, but it wasn't hitting our operating plan. We also focused, because we're a Main Street, we focused on the 4 transformational strategies. So we were able to take a look at very specifically what our metrics were. And if they were not hitting the metrics, we had to let it go. And so I think the hardest part about any type of strategic plan or framework is the implementation part. And so we really were intentional about involving our board of directors, our small businesses, on what that would look like for the future. We've seen about $700 million in development over the last 30 years, which is amazing and unprecedented based on our demographics. But we wanted to make sure we didn't cannibalize our small businesses and remove the historical fabric that made our neighborhoods what they are today. So doing that, there's a lot to balance. And so we just wanted to make sure that we were as collaborative as possible.
Great. It was interesting. The same day I had that conversation with Ray, I was on the phone with Chris, and he was describing how his goal when he became executive director was to be the entity that anyone and everyone in Viroqua came to for a solution. So Ray talked about it becoming too big and everyone was coming to it, and Chris was trying to achieve that thing. Chris, walk me through your thinking.
So the key is, first, you have to make sure that you're going to work for an organization with a sufficiently ambiguous mission statement that allows you to do all sorts of stuff when you have to go back to your board and justify what it is that you're doing. When I took over as director of the Viroqua Chamber and I was looking at our community and looking at what our challenges were, what our challenges continue to be, and what the assets we have at our disposal are, what resources we have to try to solve some of these problems that we have. What I see is a community that looks just like me, just looks like my family when I was growing up, my friends. And what I mean when I say that is I recognize that I have had significant blessings in my life. And the fact that I'm on this stage here today in front of you all, and these fine folks here, I don't like to say we were poor. Poor is a state of mind, but we were certainly broke growing up. And that describes a lot of the folks, my friends and my neighbors and my family. And I heard Tim in the last panel, and we heard the distinguished mayor of La Crosse today talk about the importance of community. And so when I leaned into the Viroqua Chamber, community and the people that make up this community were really where I wanted to focus my energies. I recognize that as the director of the Chamber of Commerce, I sit in a position of relative power in our community. And so I had a choice to make of what it was that I was going to do with that power. Viroqua is a special community. Our largest employers are our hospital, our school. We've got one significant manufacturer in town, Nelson Global Products. But by and large, the businesses in our town are small businesses, family-owned businesses. Behind every one of those businesses is a mom. Most of our businesses downtown are women-owned. There's moms and there's dads that are just trying to build an asset for their family and take some food home for the kids. So when I started leaning into how we're going to really develop our economic system, what does economic development in Viroqua mean? For me, it's really about community development. Again, Tim mentioned live, work, and play. We want folks to be able to have, number one, have a job. And because we're in rural Wisconsin and our businesses, our schools, our hospitals are trying to attract folks from all over the country, all over the world to come relocate to our little rural community. What I recognize is that we have a community full of artists, creators, crafters, people with a wide variety of talents. And because I was serious about really making some inroads into addressing generational poverty, what I recognize is that the Viroqua Chamber represented an opportunity for folks to turn their passions and their hobbies into businesses. And these businesses are assets that they can build and turn over to their children and really have a meaningful impact in tackling generational poverty that has pervaded our community for years and generations. And so when it comes to community, to me, community, how do we bring value to the businesses? Well, those businesses are my friends and neighbors, and they're trying to take care of their families. But our largest employers, when I ask them, how can I serve you, what they need is cultural amenities. So when they're trying to attract people from Portland and Chicago and all over the world to relocate to Viroqua, they're going to have the amenities that they need to have a meaningful life. So I think I've gone off the stray a little bit here, but for me, it's about just really leaning into my community and my people and really trying to make a difference in the lives of moms and dads and families.
So when we were looking at how we could move the needle in the Fox cities, the largest challenge that our employers were having was the fact that we just didn't have enough people. We didn't have enough people for the job openings that we had. There were 3 job openings for every 1 job seeker. And we knew to attract people to the Fox cities, I mean, we're doing pretty good. You know, we're double the state average if you look at the numbers for the past few years as far as attracting talent to our region. But we also knew when people graduate from college, they can go anywhere. Our best and brightest can go anywhere. And what are they looking for? They're looking for quality of life. And quality of life is driven by small business. Nobody is saying, find me the biggest Best Buy and that's where I'm moving, right? So we've decided to focus in on, without going out and doing a huge capital campaign and asking for funding from some exterior source, how can we make that happen? Now bear in mind, not every community can do this. Every chamber that's out there serves a different community and has to do it a different way. But it worked for us, and we spent many months modeling a free membership model where small businesses that have 5 or less full-time employees, nonprofits that have 10 or less full-time employees, and all freestanding restaurants receive an entirely free suite of support from our chamber and from our community. And what we found is all of a sudden when we launched this, the first month, we were asked to present it statewide as a best practice to watch. The following month, we were in Washington, D.C., presenting it as a national best practice to watch. And the statistics I saw last month are actually 4% of the chambers across the country are now following our lead. And some of them are like Buffalo, New York, Overland Park, Kansas. And last week, believe it or not, we got a phone call from Asheville, North Carolina. And Asheville said, we want to know about Connect Free. And the exact response was, don't you have some bigger things to deal with right now? And they said, none bigger than this. We need to launch this model. So what we found is that wrapping our arms around our small employers as a community and giving them the resources at their most fragile time has helped many of these businesses grow. And today we have about 720 small businesses in our region that our community has come around. It's not only the chamber now, the YMCA has added onto our program, Network Health has added onto our program, and it's amazing what a community can do together to move the needle.
Yeah, both Chris and Becky have hit on something that's pretty interesting, which is if the traditional model of a Chamber of Commerce could be characterized as transactional. I'm a member, I pay dues, and I expect certain things in return for my dues as a dues-paying member, and that keeps it strong. Both of you are describing something different, and Jacqui, you touched on that. I'd love, Jacqui, maybe starting with you, if you could jump into that traditional transactional relationship and how that works or doesn't work, and anyone else after that, please add your flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. When we transitioned from Chamber and Welcome Center to just the Visitors Bureau, we also updated our bylaws, and I was looking at them again this week. And our mission statement changed from working for the best of our member businesses and organizations to now we are working for residents and stakeholders of our community. And because we were that dual model before and had that other funding to go off of, it was easy for us to make that transition into a less transactional relationship with our partners, so that we are able to a rising tide rises all ships, right? We want the entire community to benefit, and this is slightly off topic, but our community has never really had to develop anything. We have the world's largest chain of lakes and national forest, and people have always just come. And we now need to change that a little bit, and someone needs to be looking forward and developing in our community in a way we've never had to do. And so as our organization, while what we're actually doing day to day hasn't changed a whole lot for our partners, we are now able to, because we represent the entire community, we represent the residents. It's a lot of talk in tourism about if it's not working for the resident, it's not going to work for the tourist. We're able to be the organization that is doing some of that development now that we're not just checking the boxes and you paid and you get the following 4 things from us.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Chris, you talked about it with OV, a large employer in your area that was investing in your chamber without expecting a tit-for-tat transaction. And Becky, you talked about a CEO, one of your board members of Securin, if I'm saying that correctly, and what he pushed you to do, and it didn't sound transactional. Could you add a little bit to that?
Sure, absolutely. So I did not come from the chamber industry. I actually worked for a cell phone company, and I was a small employer myself. So coming into the chamber world was completely new to me. As a matter of fact, today is my 6-year anniversary in the chamber industry. But I sat down with all of the CEOs in our region and really tried to understand what they were looking for. I think I was looking for the transactional solution. I was looking for the silver bullet of, oh, if I can help you find more people, if I can help you do this, how can I move the needle? And I sat down in a sports bar with the CEO of Secure Insurance, a very, very successful organization. And I said, what can the chamber do for Secure Insurance? And Garth looked me square in the eye and said, stop asking. I'm like, okay, what do I do with that? He said, no, stop asking. He said, we as a large employer invest in the Fox Cities Chamber because you improve the quality of life, because you make this a place that people want to do business, and you make this a place that people want to live. And to me, that was just a shift in mindset as we need to do something different.
When I started at the Viroqua Chamber, and I was considering, okay, what is it that we actually do here, and then what are the services that we provide? My immediate instinct was, okay, I've got to, for this money that's being provided to our organization, provide this basket of goods that I can then go say, here's what you get for your investment. But what I quickly learned is that because of the diversity of businesses and their size and then their needs, trying to develop a one-size-fits-all basket was really an impossibility. Another challenge is that at the time we were an organization of 2. Shout out to Larkin Breckel. Larkin, are you in the house? Is this you sitting over here? Vernon County Economic Development Coordinator Larkin Breckel was my assistant director. So very tight budgets, very, very limited resources. And so because we can't provide a basket of goods, similar to your conversation with Secure, and when I asked Organic Valley, listen, I know they don't need my marketing tools. I know Organic Valley doesn't need me to teach Excel spreadsheets classes to their employees, and I asked the same question, what can we do for you? And their response was just keep the events coming. You know, again, when they're trying to attract folks to their community from all over the country and all over the world to come to Cashton, Wisconsin, those folks need to believe that it's a place that their family is going to enjoy living in. And so that transactional model where here's your basket of goods just absolutely did not work for us. But you touched on something important, Becky, and it's that what Securin recognized is that the work that you were doing was just making the community at large more inviting for business owners, more supportive to business owners, and the place that people wanted to be. And so I think that's great.
One of the pieces that all of you have mentioned, and Ray, in our conversations, you really hit it, was that in that non-transactional framework that may be the place where we're gravitating, there's a focus on small business support. In some cases, small businesses, whether it's in Three Lakes or in the Fox Cities, that may not be paying in. I get that large businesses who are paying in want events, but help me understand why the broader health of the economy for the bigs actually rely on the support that your organizations provide for the smalls, right?
Yeah, so we focus a lot on public and private partnerships, and so we are part of a larger collaborative called Brew City Match, which is a Wisconsin version of Brew City Match that was birthed out of Detroit. And one of the main factors is retention. So our small business retention model was key. And so it makes no sense for us to attract, come to King Drive when the folks that are already there can't survive, right? And so we were very intentional on being a supportive mechanism and creating an ecosystem where our small businesses can not only survive but thrive, right? We had grant opportunities, we had technical assistance opportunities, but we also wanted you to become bankable to the fact that if you wanted to think about your succession plan and expand or scale, you could do that by way of a loan, right, through a CDFI partner or a traditional lender. So we were trying to really work with our internal processes to ensure that our businesses that were already there, those were our assets, those were our members, that we really wanted to make sure that they were strong and sustainable. Because to see a business spend their resources, their time, talent, and treasure, and as Chris stated, these are our people who are, making sure that they are bringing food home to their children. They are the cook, they're the manager, they're the HR representative, they are the opener, the closer, and to see them pour all of their resources and then close their doors is probably the worst feeling, right? So we were really intentional working with the assets that we had and also celebrating the uniqueness of what was in our corridor, and that is the experiences. So we really were strategic on, hey, what partners do we have? We work very closely with our chamber, African American chamber that's in the district, specifically other funders, other CDFIs, and also other traditional banks to ensure that there's just an array of opportunity and support there to help our small businesses thrive.
Right. Lot of conversation today about innovation and the business side have pointed to the connection with the willingness to take risk and the reward you get from taking that risk. I'm thinking of Jack Sells-Weddle's picture of Einstein and being willing to deal with the hair, right? Risk is not just on the business side. When you do dynamic things, it's also for organizations. When the Fox Cities Chamber said, you know what, we are going to extend benefits to a bunch of non-paying partners. You also have to make sure that your books balance. You're also running an organization. How did you deal with that risk? And what were some of the keys in navigating the unknown before kind of the success started pouring in?
So I can tell you it was directly scarier than hell to do this. February of 2022, we sat down as a group and we brought in somebody at the national level and we started talking about moving the needle together. And we started talking about cutting the source that pays everybody's paycheck at the chamber. And we walked away from that meeting with the discussion of, let's model it. Let's see what it looks like. Let's do a deep dive into the data. Then we came back and the board said, okay, we're willing to take the risk. We're willing to do that. But if we do this, can we do it well? And then we dug into, could we actually launch this thing and have it be a success? So on August 29th, 2022, we put out the word to everybody on the street that you needed to be at the chamber. You absolutely needed to be at the chamber. We were about to make an announcement that was going to change our community. And we had all of the politicians there. We had all of the media there. We were the lead story on every station at 5 o'clock. We had all of the board members there. We had all of our major investors in there. It was a packed house. What people don't know is that I woke up that morning and I rolled over and I looked at my husband and said, point blank, we are about to do something amazing for our community or I will never be able to get another job, period. So it was a very scary moment. But when we came back from Dallas and the entire Fox Cities Chamber was full of flowers from many of you in this room, as well as chambers from all over the country, and they were turning to us to help lead the way. All of that risk really felt like it was worth it. And more importantly, those 700 plus small businesses that rely upon us now, we're tangibly making a difference every day. And
we're all surrounded by people in our community that want to share their talents with us, and I think it's really leveraging their insights. You know, the day before we launched, I called John Bergstrom, obviously a very, very affluent business person, and said, John, we're about to launch this program. John's not on our board. And he said, okay, great, what's it gonna cost me? And I said, it's not gonna cost you anything. What we're gonna do is we're gonna touch more people. We're going to, our marketing's gonna be worth more because we're gonna be out in the market. We're gonna have more people invited to our events, and that's how we modeled it. And I remember he said to me, this is so smart, I can't believe we didn't do it years ago. So don't hesitate to look outside of the box.
Any other risks the others can think of and how you approach them when you're trying to turn convention on its head?
I'll just share that, as I stated, we're 4.5 miles, which is a very long commercial corridor to have to govern. What we extended those boundaries in 2021. I came on in 2022, and the issue or the challenge is that we sort of had two districts, right? We had the existing boundaries that we had, and then we had the newly added boundaries. And I thought it would be most beneficial for us to lean into the low-hanging fruit, which is the southern part of the corridor, and so to invest in as much infrastructure as we could. And I'm gonna get a little personal with you all. There's a little thing called gentrification by way of displacement that can be very detrimental to communities of color. And since we were adjacent to the downtown, that is obviously a concern. And so I wanted to be intentional about the visuals, the beautification in the district. And by doing that, I focused greatly on the southern part of the corridor because it was the easiest thing to transform. And so now you'll see a huge mural of MLK. You'll see a huge mural of Toni Morrison. You'll see a huge statue of MLK. You'll see lighted, bright benches and trash receptacles that are branded King Drive. You'll see the neighborhood banners as well. So we wanted people to see where you were and where you are, and we'll continue that heading north into the part of the district that has more challenges and more opportunity. But in order to do that, people need to touch and see and feel what that looks like. So we took a risk and we made the investment where we could get the biggest impact.
I'm looking for somebody to talk about taking a risk that actually doesn't pan out at first. That might have a story of turning some lemons into lemonade when you do take risks.
Well, you know, we were all like, oh boy. I can tell you our journey with our free membership model has not been without its challenges. I think we had 600 members before we ran into the first one that we were like, what do we do with this person? Because they didn't want to be a member, they wanted to be a disruptor of our community. And they found our free membership as a platform. You know, we had a yoga instructor who basically wanted to take on the world, and it was very challenging for us. So I think it's important that you take those issues head on. You have to make the corrections. We actually had to create a member expulsion policy. That's not something that most chambers have. And we had to have a policy with a code of conduct of people, how people had to treat each other to be part of our organization. Because, you know, that's what we needed to do to move forward. So, but I think it's not burying your head in the sand and making sure that you're taking those challenges head on.
I don't know if I'm necessarily going to answer your question, but I'll lean into it a little bit. We're here talking about innovative approaches to community development. I'm a small business owner. I was a member of the Viroqua Chamber before being the executive director. I didn't know what that got me. It felt like I was a business owner, and it's just what you do. You sign up for the chamber. So I paid my dues, and it just felt good to be a part of that community. And I don't know if I received lemons. I think time will tell. I'm no longer the director of the chamber, and I think that's maybe appropriate to preface before I say this. Don't get scared, Missy. Secretary Hughes. I was really inspired by one of my first experiences as a chamber director in 2021. I think it was 2021. It was shortly after Governor Evers came in office. Secretary Hughes took over the WEDC. Some things were changing in the way that WEDC was investing its resources. And I remember I was at a conference, I don't know if I could say, who was Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce. And there was some question on how WEDC was going to be investing its workforce, investing dollars into workforce. And some of the folks there at the conference had gotten comfortable with the way that things had been done. And one of the primaries of the organization, I was in the kind of off to the side, and I heard him ask Secretary Hughes, "Hey, is this money going to keep on coming our way?" And Secretary Hughes answered in such a way that, well, we're actually going to make some different kinds of investments. And that ultimately manifested itself in, I think, in one way, in the Bounce Back Grant program. And a program that I personally, as a business owner, benefited from, and our community benefited from. A community of 4,500 people. We brought in 21 bounce back grants, $210,000 into our community. That created 21 new businesses and employed over 100 people. And so what was really remarkable to me about that was that earlier at that conference, there was somebody had stood up from one of the state of Wisconsin's largest manufacturers and said, "Hey, we had last year gotten this $250,000 grant that we use for workforce, and we were able to bring in 9 executives to this company." And I sat back in my chair and said, well, why, with $250,000, imagine what I could do in Viroqua. And so to hear just an hour later, Secretary Hughes expressed that, hey, that may have been the way things that were done before, but we're going to make some different strategic investments with the way things go here. And so what I'm really driving at here, as we're here today talking about innovation, and as I'm a business owner and I look at my community and what really propels communities forward, what I tried to do through the Viroqua Chamber was flip this whole model on its head and try to find a way that I could support my business community by investing not my resources and the limited funds that I had directly into those businesses, but into the people that were going to end up being customers of those businesses. I never believed, when I did my surveys of my businesses, tax burdens and regulation, over-regulation was never the top things that my businesses complained about. What they needed was customers in the doors. So maybe, just maybe, my business can sell more products, not because I've gotten some tax relief or some regulatory help in my kitchen, but because the people in my community have a couple more bucks in their pockets and they can come into their store. Maybe because I've helped to invest my time and resources in building new businesses and putting money in other people's pockets. And so in terms of innovation, we really try to flip this whole thing upside down. My business thrives because folks can afford to come spend money there.
There are so many, I mean, as I said at the start of this, from Three Lakes to Viroqua, from Milwaukee up to the Fox Cities, such different communities, a lot of such different challenges, but a lot of similar solutions. And yet some very different approaches, because that's what folks have to do. They have to tailor the solutions, the innovations to the communities, the types of economies that drive those communities. This is a room full of folks that are engaged both in their state economy, but also in their local economies. So just as we wrap, would love for all of you who have driven or been part of innovation from your perch in your community, one piece of advice that you would offer this group that is a lesson you give. Jacqui, I'll start with you.
Okay. I'm still very much in the middle of all of this innovation in our community, so not quite sure how successful it will all be yet, but I think being in a community that has done things the same for a very long time, I would just say to reach out to organizations like ours, the chambers, the visitors bureaus, the bid districts, the downtown organizations, because they're listening to the businesses in your community, which are the residents in your community. So add organizations like this as a partner in your municipality, in your EDO, and just continue to innovate by bringing partners like these alongside.
Yeah, and in your case, bringing in partners who might not be initially ready to voluntarily join,
Yes.
open the door.
Yep.
That's great. Ray?
No money, no mission. So be equally invested in the community development as well as be concerned with the ROI. So you can't transform communities with no money, and you can't do it with no people.
Great. Chris?
Can't underestimate the power of collaboration. I'm certain with every problem that you see, there's at least one person in your community that sees that same problem, and having the foresight to find those folks who are genuinely committed to finding solutions to problems and providing them opportunities to come together, and just providing leadership to let people do what people naturally want to do, which is, I think, solve problems and help your neighbors. I cannot overstate the importance of the power of collaboration and leaning into people who see the same things that you do.
And
Support your chamber.
Yeah.
Every chamber is different. I can tell you, I sit on a national board. Some chambers have steakhouses on their rooftops, and that's how they fund their economic development. But every chamber is trying to build itself so that it serves those needs. And it's not always easy with budget cuts. I know Tim Hanna's in this room, and Tim was at a meeting with me about 5 years ago, and he literally stood up 6 times and said, no, we need to fund this work. We need to make this happen. Support your chamber with time, talent, and treasures, and please bring your ideas forward so that they can help create the programs that you need to drive your community.
Well, I think after this, and probably some other conversations we've had today, but the word cloud is already in my mind. We'll see tomorrow looking different. So thanks to all of you for your leadership, your commitments to your communities, for your businesses that are part of our communities. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to our secretary, who I don't see. A big round of applause.